Can one person change the world? It's a question that's been with me a lot growing up and of late, and no wonder, I guess. As a child, I really used to love cartoons and movies and stories, and my parents would basically set me down on the couch and start the TV on, and I would spend hours just spending time with the cartoon characters as they took me by the hand and we went on an adventure in the land of imagination. And a very common theme that's usually discussed in cartoons, movies, and stories in general is that of the hero. It's a person who is seemingly special in his own way, who sets out on some journey and through perseverance and through facing the challenges that come his way, ends up changing the world for the better somehow. And to circle back to the question, if one person can change the world, let's try and figure that out together. Let me ask you all, has anyone here ever volunteered in charity work before? If you have, if your answer was yes, then I would argue that you probably believe that one person can change the world. And you did in fact change the world. Like, from the perspective of the people you helped out, you did in fact change their world, which is a noteworthy achievement that's definitely worth, and it's worth its own reward. Let me, guys, tell you all a story. Something like 7 years ago, I met a group of people I'm lucky enough to call my friends now, who used to organize these charity events where they collected donations and then they'd pick a less privileged governorate in Egypt, and we'd basically go and build roofs there for people whose houses didn't have a roof. Now, I want you to imagine the house consisted only of 4 walls and there was no roof over their heads to keep out the rain or the cold. Can you imagine that? And I really enjoyed doing it because I felt like we had an actual tangible impact on the world and we were making it better, even if it was just for the people whose houses we roofed. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about these in general. I want to talk about my last roofing trip in specific, which was around a year ago. And we were going all the way to Luqsor. So basically, we met at the Cairo train station. We took the 10-hour-long ride to Luqsor. And when we got there and we left the train station, I remember the first thing we saw كانت قهوة بلدي يعني. ورحنا وشربنا قهوة من هناك. وجست saying القهوة ما كانتش حلوة خالص يعني. بس يعني and then we split up, I think, into 4 teams of 4, was it? And we started our work for the day. Like, I don't know if any one of you has done any manual labor before, but it's meditative in a sense, and you can get lost working on it. So we spent the day working, and sometime around sunset, I'd heard that as a group, we'd managed to roof 100 houses. So naturally, I was filled with pride and joy at the impact we'd done. And then I'd heard that there was 1 house left yet to be roofed. So I thought, why not? Let's do it as well. So basically, we got to it and we did it. And after we finished, I was walking on the roof, inspecting our handiwork, when it seems I misstepped. The plank under me broke, and I fell something like 4 meters onto the hard ground. I broke 6 ribs, punctured my lung, broke my collarbone, fractured my shoulder, and hit my head pretty hard. Now, as you can all understand, I have no memory of the coming events or of that day actually. I only remember the first two roofs we worked on. And then, after falling, my friends took me on the back of a pickup truck to a nearby hospital. And I spent 2 weeks there in critical condition where I was in a coma. And this was the most difficult period, not on me specifically, but on my family and friends, because the doctors were not sure if I would recover or not. After the 2 weeks I spent at Loosor, they took me on an ambulance plane basically to a better equipped hospital in Cairo. And there, under the better equipped care, I slowly started to show signs of recovery. And by the end of the 3 weeks, I had regained my consciousness, and even if the world was a little blurry still, I was actually aware of what was going on around me. On that day when they told me that I would be going home, the thought of spending the night in my own bed after spending like all these weeks out of it was so joyous for me that I would have broken out into song had I been able to speak louder than a whisper and had my mind not been all over the place. When I got home, I basically spent most of my time asleep, basically. I would sleep maybe 16 hours a day, something like that. And then sometimes my friends would come over and visit me, and naturally I'd be overjoyed. And we'd spend some time sitting together in our living room, but then I'd feel that the bed was calling me, and then I'd stand up, and with no words and tell them nothing, I'd just head to bed. Let me give you an idea of what my state was at the time. I could walk, but barely. I didn't have any balance whatsoever, which is to say, like, I can stand up on one leg now, not normally, but before it would have been impossible. My voice wasn't much louder than a whisper, and my voice was slurred, and I was speaking maybe half as fast as I was speaking now. Now, if I had to give one piece of advice to anyone in a similar situation or any difficult situation whatsoever, it would be to focus on the right mindset for that situation and put your eyes on the prize. To me, like, that situation was going forward because I really wanted to be like I was before the fall. And so if regular doctor's appointments, rehab sessions, pills, and injections was the way to do it, it never occurred to me that there could have been any other way I could take. And naturally, all the support I got from family and friends helped stay my course during that difficult time. Now, I spent, after getting home, maybe a month and a half going to regular rehab sessions. And just so you can imagine, the rehab sessions are basically a baby's version of a workout that any of you would go to. And after a month and a half of rehab, I had an appointment with a neurologist, which is just a fancy word for brain doctor. And so I traveled abroad to visit this neurologist, and I can remember very well how it went. I sat in front of him, and he told me that based on the scans he'd seen from the time of the accident, it was a miracle that I was sitting in front of him at all. And like, that filled me with so much joy or appreciation that things could have gone a lot better, and they didn't, alhamdulillah. I also remember that he told me, try to get back to your life before as normal and focus on 3 things: your family, your friends, and your work. And with time, your brain would get back to normal. And it seems he was right, and he knew what he was talking about, because I can stand here in front of you. If anyone had spoken to me on December 19th, on that fateful day, on my train trip to Luqsor, and had asked me about my plans for the future, they would have not included any visits to the hospital, I can assure you. But change is much like a force of nature or a bull. It can sweep you off your feet, and there's nothing you can do about it, and all your plans for the future get thrown in the trash. But if I had to give a piece of advice, I would say it's always best to embrace change, because it always happens. And then set a goal for where you want to go, and then take the bull by the horns and do your best to try and drive it in that direction. As I was saying, change is a force of nature, and it can't be stopped. Not by me, not by anyone, even if they were the president of the strongest country in the world. And something that's on my mind a lot is I feel like we're in a period of accelerating change, and the world is changing around us very much. And one example I'd like to give you is that we used to be a society where the wealthiest families had maybe one phone at their houses, and now everyone has their own personal and private cell phone. Let's play a game. Could anyone who doesn't have a personal cell phone please raise their hands? I can't really see anyone because the light is in my eyes, but I'd ask you to look around yourself and see that no one has a phone. I see there one person among everyone here who doesn't have a cell phone. And as you can imagine, all the communication that this change enabled must have changed the world so much. And I won't even mention the fact that we have the internet in our pockets, because that would be like 4 or 5 other talks altogether. But what I'm sure of is each and every person here and now will have the role to play in the coming changes. And I ask you and I beseech you to manifest the little hero inside each and every one of you, and to take the bull by the horns and try to change the world to a state where you would be proud to live in it, a world that's kinder, a world that cares about everyone, and just a better world altogether. And if one person can change the world, as we said before, imagine what we could achieve if we all tried to change the world for the better. Thank you.